Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the April Historic Preservation Commission meeting. Thank you all for coming out on this stormy afternoon. My name is Taylor Fudge. I'm the chair of the Historic Preservation Commission. As usual, we do have a full agenda, and it's my goal to get everyone out of here early today. So be thorough and be mindful of your time as we're going through notes and conversations. As a reminder, please limit individual conversations during this meeting. This ensures that commission members and applicants can hear one another. Please remain quiet until you're called upon. When you do speak, please state your name and address here at the podium for our records. Before the commission votes on each item, we will ask if any members of the public wish to speak. Anyone speaking will be given 3 minutes to relay information to the commission members. If we do have to stop this meeting for any reason and we're unable to continue, tornadoes coming after us, all remaining items will be moved to the next regularly scheduled Historic Preservation Commission meeting. The meeting takes place on Wednesday, June 1st at 2 p.m. here in Council's chambers. The agenda and documents for today's meeting are located on the PrimeGov website. If you're following along, select Agenda on the right side of the Historic Preservation Commission meeting to see what items are being discussed. Written comments received more than 24 hours before today's meeting are posted online and were shared with commission members. At this point, new materials may not be shared with the commission. So if you brought anything with you today, please keep that at your seats, as we cannot accept and review. Desiree, can you please call roll?
Commissioner Fudge.
Present.
Commissioner Ryman Phillip.
Present.
Commissioner Corbin. Commissioner Farzana. Commissioner Jordan.
Present.
Commissioner Meacham. Commissioner Milner. Commissioner Poore.
Present.
Commissioner Ramey.
Present.
Sounds like we have quorum. Procedures for today's meeting are noted in the agenda. For the sake of time, I will ask that anyone who is unfamiliar with the process, please refer to that procedures section. There are 2 items we do like to note specifically regarding the meeting process. Those involve certificates of appropriateness and appeals. Regarding certificates of appropriateness, after an application is approved and the 10-day protest period has expired, the Historic Preservation Officer will mail the certificate of appropriateness to the applicant. City construction permits cannot be issued until the CA is issued. Please contact HP staff for final design review inspection or to withdraw items that will not be completed. Regarding appeals to the Board of Adjustments, any person aggrieved by a decision granting or denying a certificate of appropriateness may appeal to the Oklahoma City Board of Adjustments. All appeals shall be made within 10 days of the commission decision by filing a written notice of appeal with the clerk of the Board of Adjustments. Angela, do we have any news from the Office of the Historic Preservation Officer? Yep. Okay, perfect. Let's see, item number 3, we'll move on to the acceptance of the minutes. Have my fellow commissioners had a chance to review the minutes from the April 6th meeting? And do we have any questions or perhaps a motion to accept or modify?
I motion to accept the April meeting minutes.
Moved by Commissioner Jordan. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Seconded by Commissioner Ryman Phillip. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that item was passed. The minutes were passed unanimously. Angela, do we have anything from code enforcement?
No, we do not, but as always, you're welcome to call city staff if you have any questions regarding the report.
Perfect. Any continuance announcements or requests?
Nothing new, no.
Okay. We will move on to the public hearings. First, dilapidated structures. Nothing. National Register nominations. Nothing. Looks like we do have 6 items on the consent docket today. Does anything need to be pulled for review from the commissioner's perspective? Okay. Looks like we're in good shape there. Do we need a motion to approve those on the consent docket, Rita?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the consent docket.
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Ryman Phillip, seconded by Commissioner Jordan. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov. am not showing a button to vote. Do you want to do an oral vote?
Commissioner Fudge,
Yay.
Commissioner Ryman Phillip,
Aye.
Commissioner Corbin, Commissioner Farzana, Commissioner Jordan,
Yay.
Commissioner Meacham, Commissioner Milner, Commissioner Poore,
Aye.
Commissioner Ramey.
Aye.
Okay, sounds like that motion was passed unanimously. If you were on the consent docket, congratulations. Your project is approved. You have the option to stick around with us for the remainder of the meeting or head out now. We have 7 items under, 6D, cases for individual consideration, the first of which is Hpca 21-00184 at 2104 Northwest 29th Street. Can you give us a brief summary of this particular item, Angela? And do we have applicants present? Yes. Would you like to come to the podium? With
The
baby in
applicants-
tow, I love it. Well, congrats.
The applicants proposed the construction of an accessory structure at this site, previously described as a garage.
Okay, so looks like this is, the notes that I've got, this is accessory structure. I think we had proposed, or staff had proposed a continuance. Sounds like the structure was too big and some of the materials lacked some documentation.
Yeah, originally this was, like she said, going to be a garage structure, only because we didn't know what to call it. We're very new at all this, obviously, and also with having a newborn, it's been kind of difficult finding time. But we wanted a building out there that would be used for storage and hobbies. I'm a woodworker, she does costuming, things like that. But we did eventually, when we spoke to Katie originally, hear that eventually there might be some new coding to where we could have a guest house, mother-in-law apartment. We have a lot of family out of town, obviously trying to come visit baby, things like that, that we'd like to have a place because we only have a 2-bedroom house. So that was the eventuality that we would hope for. But that, for right now, accessory structure would be the correct title.
Okay.
And I didn't know we weren't able to bring updated stuff to it. So I do have updated things that I guess
Okay.
I'll mail in for corrected material for windows, et cetera, things like that.
Okay. We have any?
Well, I was gonna say, Desiree, is there a way, we still have the voting box up, it's kind of tough to see the.
Navigate.
Yeah. Or see the attachments.
So it sounds like to me that you are developing new information. It's not ready for this meeting. Are you comfortable with continuing to next meeting to? Flush all
Yes,
that
if that's
out.
needed, absolutely.
Okay. Because I don't think if what I'm hearing is correct, that the
New information.
documentation that is presented to us that we would be approving today is not
Well,
what is
so far,
actually proposed.
Yes, sir. Well, the window materials and an exact picture of the door. So it's a little bit of smaller stuff, but yeah, there is still some things needed to be added.
Okay.
Are you proposing reducing the size at all?
Well, no, to be frank. We're still hoping for that size, like I said, because eventually we were hoping for a living structure. Anything smaller would be kind of hard.
Sure. I think it's going to be a struggle to get a garage that's oversized, pushed through on the commission side. So I would say keep that in mind as we go through the continuances and as you work with staff. The tendency nowadays is for people to push the envelope and kind of get bigger and bigger and bigger. And there are garages that are at a point now where they're sometimes overpowering the houses as they're coming in for a inspection and review. So I would just say keep that in mind.
Yeah.
I know for me personally, it's a pet peeve to see a garage mahal that comes in. So
Well, we did also, I don't know if this is just semantics, but we did try to change the name to an accessory structure rather because there is no inlet back
Sure.
there for somebody to park. So
Yeah.
it wouldn't be a garage at all.
Do we know, I'm trying to find it here, but is it documented what the allowed size is? It looks like in the staff report, 450, is
Yeah,
that the correct?
450
Is
square
allowed?
feet.
Yes.
And what was the proposed square footage?
600, I believe, currently.
Yeah, 600.
And Angela, is that 450 the restriction on all accessory buildings regardless of it being a garage or not garage?
450 is specifically addressing garage structures. Accessory structures are listed as something that is administratively approvable. So generally, we anticipate that they are significantly smaller than garages. Some of the things that might have an influence on the size of an accessory structure at this location might be the sizes of other accessory structures. There is, in fact, a secondary residence, which feels like what you're proposing, at the far end of the block to the east. That may be comparable, but it appears to be significantly more modest, while the design details themselves speak more to a residence than an accessory structure.
Okay, so my advice would be in the time from now until whenever you would like to continue it, whether it be next meeting or the meeting following, is kind of work with city staff to sort of make your case for if you're going to exceed the 450. Look for extenuating circumstances, precedent, those types of things, because we've turned down several projects that have exceeded that 450 number for garages.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what the status quo has been. So make a compelling case in your next go-round for that 600 feet, if that's
Absolutely.
what you choose to go with.
Well, and I'm wondering on this site, so you have kind of a real basic site plan here, but you were saying that it's not going to function as a garage for cars, and it sounds like there's not really a way to get a, any kind of paving or any kind of driveway.
Well, not
in there
currently,
anyways.
because technically that lot that you see next to it is still a lot that is owned. I don't know if it can be built on. It is a little bit smaller than the typical lot. But we have, we have talked to the person who owns it to see if purchasing it would change it. But other than that, thered be no way to get a vehicle back there other than driving through somebody else's property. So
The only reason I say that, if it's not going to be used for a car and you're not going to add a whole drive and a whole turnaround and, all this paving in the back, the lot coverage, if you're adding in paving and drive,
yeah, there
would
wouldn't
potentially
be
be less than a typical garage.
any, exactly. There we are.
That could be maybe a circumstance that you could investigate, but anyway.
Yeah, it sounds like we need to avoid the whole garage conversation.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So just look at the guidelines, make sure you're fitting within the guidelines for accessory structures. If there's deviations, I would make a case
Perfect.
when you come back. And I think applicant's ready to continue this unless you have questions for us or further guidance.
No, not necessarily. It's been pretty straightforward. I thought the making your case was you made your case here. I didn't know it was just for sizing and things like that, because I did understand that was something we'd have to fight for. So,
And I think you said you brought some new materials today to the meeting, but you can't share them. Is that correct? Or?
yeah, but it was just the materials of the window composition, doors,
perfect.
smaller details like that. Yes.
Yeah, because that always helps us make decisions as well. The more information, especially like a site plan, a good site plan helps a lot. So.
And I think you can make your case here. I'm not saying that you can't. I think if it's provided ahead of time, that makes it a little easy, so we're not seeing it for the first time,
Absolutely.
and we can kind of digest.
Yeah,
and
we're very
come
new
up
to
with-
this, so
Yeah,
it's a
sure.
it's a learning
Yeah.
a learning curve a bit.
And Angela, if they were to meet the guidelines, say if they came back with an accessory structure that met that 450 square feet, is that something that would be administratively approvable, or would they have to come back and we would discuss it?
Staff has the ability to forward to you anything that we would normally administratively approve, and we generally bring to you accessory structures that exceed about 200 square feet.
Okay. So if you met, the square footage, you might not have to come by, if it met all the other guidelines. So,
Wonderful.
Yep.
Okay. Did we get your name and address for
Oh,
the
sorry.
record?
Michael Hines, 2104 Northwest 29th Street.
Perfect. Do we have any other citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? Anybody from the neighborhood? Okay. Michael, do you want a continuance for 30, 60 days? What is your preference?
30 days.
Okay. Which takes us to, let's see,
Tuesday will be the deadline for complete submittal of
Okay.
documentation.
Perfect.
What did you say it was, next Tuesday?
Tuesday,
Next
yes.
Tuesday. Okay, so we will continue this to the, what is it, the June 1st meeting, is that correct, Angela?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do we have a motion for continuance?
I'm happy to make the motion. My screen is locked, so can you just confirm that it's HPCA 21-00184?
That's correct.
And we're just looking at item number 1?
Yes.
Okay, I motion to continue HPCA 21-00184, item 1, with the specific findings in the staff report to the June 1st meeting.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Moved by Commissioner Jordan, seconded by Commissioner Poore. All in favor, please vote in prime gov, and if we can't do that, we'll do another verbal. Verbal?
We'll have to do verbal
Verbal it
for
is.
Commissioner Fudge,
Yay.
Commissioner Ryman Phillip,
Aye.
Commissioner Corbin, Commissioner Farzana, Commissioner Jordan,
Yay?
Commissioner Meacham, Commissioner Milner, Commissioner Poore,
Aye.
Commissioner Ramey.
Aye.
Okay, that continuance is passed unanimously. We'll see you back here next month,
Thank you all.
and we will move on to item number 2, HPCA 22-00037 at 530 Northwest 27th Street.
Hey, Taylor, my computer's still totally locked, like I can't access any of the agenda, only the things that I already have pulled up.
We can't vote, correct. Yeah. Okay, can you please state your name and address for the record?
Matthew Webb, 2416 Barclay Road.
Perfect. Matthew, talk to us a little bit about your project.
We are trying to get approval for a swimming pool in the backyard of this property. I think currently the hangup is the total square footage of pool and paving in relation to the rest of the property.
And Angela, can you help us out here at where this house is located? There's a little bit of more,
The structure is within Tract 1 of the Paseo Neighborhood Conservation District, and as such, it has a slightly expanded amount of paving that is tolerated within the boundaries of the property lines, up to 70% maximum, if approved by the commission. I believe that the proposal currently, and with the proposed pool and paving between the house and the garage, does in fact reach 70% and possibly exceed with the other paving and sidewalks and that sort of thing that are included on the site.
What-
Do you have any other questions
what
about the
about the
pool?
setbacks on the pool?
The
Guideline?
setbacks in Tract 1 are 10 feet from the property line at corner lots,
Okay.
from the street, yes.
And how far is this one set back, do we know?
6 feet.
Okay. Okay. So for me personally, it doesn't sound like it fits necessarily within the guidelines. The setbacks aren't quite there. Sounds like it might be a little oversized as well in terms of lot coverage. I would probably recommend a continuance on this until we can get that exact percentage noted, unless you have that information with you today.
So I do have a question. So currently, a couple things. And this maybe, you and I didn't discuss this, Angela, so this is just for my information. I thought that, in discussing with the homeowner, I thought that, I don't know if it's just within this particular, just within Paseo, but his understanding was there was 0 setbacks in this particular neighborhood. That may be
On the interior lot, at the corner lot, at the street, it's
okay.
10.
Gotcha. And then currently, the square footage of driveway, house, sidewalks, everything, it already exceeds the 50%. Is it 50 or is it 70 that we have to?
Tract 1, the maximum will be 70.
So 70. So, so right now, the main thing is going to be the setback for approval here. Is that correct?
That, and then I know that there was some question on the concrete and the parking. I believe that was of
In
concern
relationship
as
to
well.
the driveway?
Yes.
There is in fact a very large expanse of paving here, a portion of which feeds the driveway to the garage, and the other half of which is entirely within the right-of-way itself. It has a curb to the far north there, and you can see it at the steps a little bit. I am unclear as to whether or not that entire apron is being replaced, or if it's only the apron to the driveway itself. If it includes the parking, I believe that there are other issues that we will have to address with that.
Okay.
And potentially having to address that with the Traffic Commission too, I believe. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Yep.
The driveway, I am not, that's just all happening at the same time, so I don't have answers on
Okay.
the specifics of the driveway. So, yeah, I can't help on that.
I think based off the setbacks challenge that we've got, some of the questions around the parking and the driveway, and the lot coverage size, I think I would still continue, or still recommend a continuance,
Okay.
if you all are comfortable with that. Yeah,
Would you like
and
to
I
work
guess for
together
my other
towards
commissioners,
continue the next available meeting, or do you
Yes.
need some time?
No, when is, all that documentation would be due when?
We'd need to hook up before this coming Tuesday.
That would be, what is,
I don't have any.
Before we go there, do any other commissioners have questions on this particular project that we want to make sure we address? Sorry, I just kind of forgot about you guys for a second there.
No, I feel like we've
Tuesday's
done
the
different
10th.
versions of this case
It's the
several
what?
times.
The 10th.
yeah, yes, so yes, for sure, for next week.
Okay, I will make a motion to continue items 1 and 2 of HPCA 22-00037 with the specific findings in the staff report to the June 1st meeting.
Commissioner Jordan, before we go there, are there any citizens that wish to be heard, or is there anybody from the neighborhood that wishes to speak? Okay, we got a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Jordan, second by Commissioner Remy. All in favor, please vote verbally.
Commissioner Fudge,
Yay.
Commissioner Ryman Phillip,
Aye.
Commissioner Corbin, Commissioner Farzana, Commissioner Jordan,
Yay.
Commissioner Meacham, Commissioner Milner, Commissioner Poore,
Aye.
Commissioner Ramey.
Aye.
Okay, that continuance and motion was passed unanimously. We'll see you guys next month too.
All right, thanks for your help.
Thank you. We'll move on to item number 3, HPCA 22-00042 at 2301 Northwest 27th Street. Is the applicant present? Please state your name and address for the record.
Matthew Long, 2301 Northwest 27th Street.
Perfect. Talk to us a little bit about your project, Matthew.
Sure. On January 15, 2021, my wife and I purchased the house at 2301 Northwest 27th Street. We love historic homes, original fireplaces, historic neighborhoods, and maintaining a home's character within reason. On the property sits a detached 2-story garage with an apartment on the 2nd floor. The 1st floor has not been finished and is a simple bare floor with mostly exposed stud walls on the interior. The foundation is a concrete slab without a footing or a stem wall. The slab also sits below grade. Over time, the slab has settled from the clay soil plus the weight of the garage without a proper footing to support it, plus moisture damage from no proper drainage or stem wall for rainwater. Our proposal is a mix of repairs to make the garage structure safe and resilient to moisture damage while still maintaining exterior historic character. The proposals have been carefully planned out, and any changes requested are requests that either have been approved before by the Historic Preservation Committee or match other homes in the Shepherd District. We thank you for your time and hope the changes are within reason to approve.
Perfect. Do we have any questions for the applicant? And just as an FYI, it looks like everything was recommended for approval with the exception of siding and trim and then stairs. I think the siding and trim, the issue is that it was suggested to use the hardy plank all the way around?
Say that again?
Is it the hardy plank that you all were suggesting to use all the way
Yeah,
around the
I'm
garage?
siding hardy, yes.
So I don't believe that that is allowed by guidelines. Is that fair, Angela?
Yes.
Okay.
The site is fully visible from the street.
Okay. So typically the hardy plank is allowed on areas that are not visible from the street. This one sounds like it's very, very visible. Would you be open to modification of the siding and the trim that you guys are using on your particular garage?
I should have read the staff report, I apologize. So you might have answered these questions I'm about to ask, but I did put in my report that other, not just homes that are in the neighborhood, but homes on corner lots, they also have the exact same siding I'm asking for, and they were approved and they have it. So I don't understand why, in my case, it would not be approved when other people have the exact same thing I'm asking for.
It's really hard for us to comment on other projects that we don't really know anything about. All we can comment on is this particular case in front of us that doesn't meet the guidelines.
Well, and I think the distinction is, so hardy is allowed on new construction.
Okay.
Because it's a historic structure. I think it has to match the original, if I'm understanding.
But why would new construction be allowed to have that, but then not new, but, you know, renovations be allowed to if we're trying to keep that historic character? That doesn't make any sense. I'm just being honest.
Sure. So new is different than historic, so it can be differentiated, and there are regulations. So if you were to build a new home and use hardy, is not allowed to be wood stamped grained, because that is trying to replicate a historic material with a non-historic material, if that makes sense. So it's the difference of faux versus real. And because this is an existing structure, the guidelines are set up to protect the character and materiality of that original structure. So that's the difference.
Okay.
But I understand what you're saying, but that's the justification behind it.
Okay, so what was the recommendation I do instead?
The utilization of wood siding and trim to match your existing.
So I can't use hardy, you want me to use real wood?
I'm
Does-
sorry.
You don't want me to use the material, the James Hardy concrete fiber cement siding, you want me to use wood siding, the material?
That's correct.
Now, do you want it to be Dutch lap siding as well, or can it be the lap siding like the Hardy?
The criteria indicate that when you replace existing historic fabric,
Mm-hmm.
you replace it exactly in kind. So
Okay.
whatever is currently there is what we would anticipate would be an ordinary maintenance and repair item for that garage, and what we would anticipate being proposed for complete replacement due to deterioration beyond repair.
Okay. So, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, Taylor, just to be clear, I think staff has recommended a continuance of item 5 too, to replace the stairs at garage, if anybody wants discussion on that before we move forward.
Yeah. Let's see. Does anybody have a particular question about the stairs?
No, I think, is it just additional documentation you need, or what is the
And
main-
I can work
Yeah.
with the applicant towards that documentation if you would like to. The primary objective of that continuance was, just in case you didn't approve the change in height.
Gotcha.
Replacement of the stairs appears to be contingent upon replacement of increasing the height of the garage. The other item for the stairs is that the proposal brings those stairs out toward the east, beyond where the garage doors are going to be located at this point, so beyond that plane of the wall. I am not familiar enough with building code to know whether or not that increased depth of stairs is based on building code, or if that's simply a preference by the property owner. But I thought you might want to address it.
Is that something that you could address, the configuration of the stairs? Is there a particular need for it to extend further? Is that?
Yeah, the structure is going to be raised as long as it's approved 24 inches. And right now, how the stairs is configured, it won't be able to stay in that measurements if it's raised. The length of the stairs will need to be obviously longer. So it'll need to be torn down and then a new one replaced. Same material, wood, everything, engineered wood, and painted to match the fascia.
And we're talking, this is a interior lot, and are the stairs on the east or the west side?
The stairs are on the south side.
Downstairs on the south side.
This is a corner lot.
I mean, I don't see an issue with the, you have good justification for raising the garage height, and so you'd have to raise the stair height as well. So I
Yeah.
think, I don't see an issue really, and even, I don't think it's gonna be that impactful to make it wider, and I know, the stairs, you have building codes and other things, I'm not sure what that dimension is, and you can verify that, with staff, but I don't see any issues with the stair modifications as shown on this.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the side elevation, the south elevation. There's not going to be a way to do all that and keep it. And if you tried to work in some sort of landing or switchback, I think you're altering the fabric further. So I think that's okay
I
to
do
do
too.
what you're doing on the stairs.
So we're just down to the siding, correct?
Yes. And if the applicant is agreeable to a wood siding, Angela, is that something that you all can just administratively approve?
Yes. You
Are
can
you
actually
agreeable to a
approve
wood-
that, and
Yeah.
we can stamp the documents.
I would rather not. It's a lot more expensive. As you know, wood is just crazy right now. Wood siding is going to triple my material cost. So I understand that you want to keep the historic character, and we do too so much. But again, I understand you explained to me why the difference between a new build and a existing build, why the differences and everything, but it really doesn't make any sense from my perspective, because when you drive through this neighborhood, no one knows any of this context. No one's gonna, stop at a house and look up all the information and like, oh wow, this one's new, this one's not. Why, no one cares. So if all of our houses are gonna, be historical character, then if someone else, regardless if it's new or old, is able to do hardy siding with lap siding, and they're the exact same corner lot, you can see their garage from the east, west, north, every single direction. I just don't understand why I can't do the same.
Because the guidelines don't allow for it. That's the reason why you can't do that. And we can't approve something that the guidelines don't allow for either.
Yeah,
So-
I think it comes down to just the issue of having these stated guidelines that, our purview is only to act within those guidelines. Operating outside of them kind of diminishes this board. So
Exactly.
it is a little frustrating and it is a little confusing, but it's just not an opinion piece. It's just within those city guidelines.
Okay, well, I'll accept the Dune Wood, original Dutch lap, and trim.
Okay. I
So
think we
that'll
can-
allow us to approve everything
I
with
believe so.
that item being staff approval.
Yes, there are findings and conditions inside of the staff report that will allow staff to work with them.
Do we need the finding of the unique circumstance for the garage height?
Yes, please.
Before we go there, we do need to check if there's any citizens that wish to be heard, or is there anybody from the neighborhood that wishes to comment? Okay. Can we entertain a motion?
I'll attempt it. Okay. I motion to approve items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of HPCA 220042 with the stated and agreed upon conditions, specific findings, and unique circumstances as referenced in the staff report.
I'll second that motion.
Moved by Commissioner Jordan, second by Commissioner Poore. All in favor, please vote verbally.
Commissioner Fudge,
Yay.
Commissioner Ryman Phillip,
Aye.
Commissioner Corbin, Commissioner Farzana, Commissioner Jordan,
Yay.
Commissioner Meacham, Commissioner Milner, Commissioner Poore,
Aye.
Commissioner Ramey.
Aye.
Okay. That motion is passed unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will move on to item number 4, HPCA 22-00049 at 120 Northwest 27th Street. Is the applicant present? Come on up. And if you don't mind, state your name and address for the record, too, please.
Name is Mitesh Patel, 120 Northwest 27th Street.
I'm Scott Gillum. I've been working with Mitesh to get a project going.
Perfect. talk to us a little bit about this particular project, if you don't mind.
Yeah, we purchased the property for a sole intention of its investment purpose. Goal is to develop a duplex, and what we submitted in the plan was also a garage apartment if possible.
I'll pull up the documents on this. Before we go there, do we have any questions, anything in particular that we want to discuss with the applicant?
It seemed pretty straightforward. I'm trying to remember in the staff report, there was one item. Maybe
think
it was
the-
garage size.
The garage size, I believe, was a little too large. Yeah, they recommended approval of constructing the duplex, continue construction of the two-story garage, indicating that it exceeds 5% of the site and square
Now-
footage.
One question I did have about this, I believe it's zoned R4
Correct.
currently. So that's already a pretty, that's the highest residential zoning, I think, allowed. So to me, the garage wasn't egregious and allows for, 3 units on site, which, I think you could do 4 potentially. So I guess I didn't really have a huge issue.
I think one of the issues that you might run into with the R4 is the 50% coverage still applies.
And this is, what historically existed here is just like a typical bungalow, correct? I've
Yes.
lost it in all of these notes.
Similar to those on either, well, at this side and across the street here.
Is there anything of this height or that garage height located anywhere nearby? Like say on that block or the next block?
A garage, no.
I spoke with Oklahoma City, and they said that was the 50% rule didn't apply to this particular lot in this area, as far as coverage.
And Angela, would that just be because HP districts are not, they don't, I guess, don't legally fall within that R1, it's a recommendation versus a requirement?
That is correct,
Okay.
yes.
Say that again, Commissioner.
Well, in HP districts, the lot coverage is a strong recommendation. It's not a requirement like it is in an R1 outside of an HP district. So that's what we use as our general guideline, particularly with the density, but it's not actually a requirement.
Okay.
Yeah, that is something I have a question on. I don't know, we don't have it in front of us, the municipal code and what R4, I don't have it off the top of my head on lot coverage, and I'm not sure how the guidelines, I'm trying to read the staff report here to see how that applies with the base zoning, but.
Yeah, I think the part that I struggle with is we've got a two-story garage here that is being suggested where there really are no two-story garages present.
There's one right across the street.
Across the street?
Mhm.
Okay. Do we have pictures of any of that?
No.
And there are some other in Jefferson Park, not many, but there's some others as well. I don't have the addresses for those.
We actually do have several two-story garages within the boundaries of the district, but the guidelines and standards indicate where you share a property line with for the word abutting, and an abutting garage, or a dominating number of two-story garages on your block.
So to me, and I need to look through the guidelines a little bit more, but what's unique about Jefferson Park is that you've always historically had a pretty good mix of eighplexes, fourplexes, single family. It's really a pretty mixed up neighborhood. And to me, the fact that the base zoning of that site is R4, to me indicates an intention, at least originally and historically, for that to be a multifamily and a denser property, which I think, the main building's two-story. I know that there's some two-story structures, secondary structures around. So I guess for me, I might need to just do some investigating on the guidelines a little bit more, if this were continued or if it was, but to me, nothing seems egregious, I guess, about the proposal for this particular
I hear
lot.
what you're saying, and I agree with the density. I guess the question comes down to is a detached garage the appropriate way to achieve that density?
I think that's my question too.
I guess the alternative is you just make the main building bigger and you do a fourplex instead of a duplex. And then you get 4 units and it's, you don't have to have the discussion about garage size and, not to.
Now, this structure on your screen right now is a multiplex, and it's not in Jefferson, 436 Northwest 27th. It's right down the street, and is very similar in size and design details to what the applicant is proposing for the primary structure. I believe it's an 8-plex.
And does it have a garage structure or an accessory structure?
It had a 1-story
Okay.
multi-bay.
Like a 4-car 1-story or
I
something?
think it was 3.
Okay. Yeah, I think that, to echo David, I think that that's my concern, my general thought as well is that there are a ton of 4-plexes and 8-plexes all over the HP districts, but the addition of a rentable unit in the garage is kind of a newer one for, I think, this commission.
I guess my argument is I don't personally see an issue with it, but if it's an issue of the guidelines and how that's kind of semantics of that, there might still be a way to achieve the density you're looking for in a way that is more easily approvable,
Yeah, and I think just context is the commission's getting hit with a lot of large accessory structures, large garage apartments, 2-story apartments, and I think we're trying to figure out how to kind of hold the line. And so if that's going to be approved, we need some pretty compelling extenuating circumstances to note. So from our perspective, it sounds like I'm in concurrence with Klaus that density is not really the issue. It's that how is that garage fitting within the guidelines, and is there a compelling extenuating circumstance? I'm not sure R4 zoning is, but.
So it breaks the rule in the size. I mean, we've covered up too much of the lot. Correct.
Well, and I'm saying that it's more of the 450 square foot garage guideline that is, I think, the bigger sticking point.
That's that part. That's one of them. So there's several things that this thing is breaking.
So the garage guideline, that is set in stone. So,
Right,
I mean, it can be, we can approve all sorts of things, but that is in the actual guidelines. The lot coverage is a recommendation based on city zoning. So, but the 450 square feet on the garage footprint is actually within the guidelines, so that would take a unique circumstance to approve.
To some
Correct.
extent, yes. You have some latitude for the 450 square feet based on visibility, previously existing structures, which was tiny, or other structures that are within the block or immediately within the district that appear to have, I like to say, initiated evolution of the block, and they've exceeded that size pretty much predominantly at this point. I think that you have some structures along Robinson that are going to block the view into the site for this lot from there. So the garage, as it's currently located directly behind the building, may not be very visible at all. So you may have some latitude with that 450 square feet. But the criteria for a 2-story garage is a shall rather than a should. So I don't believe we have any latitude with that. There simply are no abutting property lines with a 2-story garage.
I guess basically, I see what you're trying to do with the property, and I think it's great. And I think just a hang-up, especially with the specific language we have, is all really to do with the garage. So it's like, if you came with a different plan maybe that said, look, let's just put 4 units in for example,
Story and a half.
in one building and don't have a garage per se, then
Yeah.
you just wouldn't have the conflict with the language and the guidelines. And
Story and a half?
on the garage, or,
Make the structure a story and a half and then,
I think the building could probably be, I think your current proposal is 2-story, right?
yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's just a, kind of like that one image of like, I think it was an eightplex, but, that one image of the, 4-plex or 8-plex, you just made it big enough to hold either 1 or 2 extra units or whatever,
Sure.
and just eliminate the garage essentially from the proposal.
Or work with, we've got a really great staff.
Yeah. Oh, I agree.
So work with Katie and Angela and the staff to figure out a way to make it fit within. So I don't know if, since density doesn't seem to be the issue, it's an accessory structure, maybe the garage portion is 450 square feet and there's additional storage that's separated somehow, or it's something that allows it to fit within the guide that makes it approvable.
Yes.
I
But-
really struggle with the fact that they could propose an 8-plex and that would be acceptable. It would probably make them have to maybe go deeper to accommodate that many units. But because of the height, because it's 2 stories, it's not acceptable to get that density on an R4. So that's a struggle to me that we could approve an 8-plex on this block, but not allow for 1 accessory dwelling unit in the back.
I think, but it does go back to just the guidelines of like, if we are trying to keep this objective rather than subjective, that is what we're able to do. I also think just historically, like when we look at how these multifamilies lived, they were all under one roof. They were not accessory structures with, there are garage apartments in the neighborhoods, of course, but as far as like the multifamilies, traditionally you do see them all under one roof with a 1-story garage structure.
Very often, yes.
They would still have the,
There's still accessory dwelling units
Yeah.
that are detached and
Yes.
throughout the historic neighborhoods. I would say that if for some reason we can't use the unique thing like that, then this is another item that I would like to put on the consideration to re-examine our guidelines for.
Yeah, because I think the question is, and I don't know this without doing a little bit more research, if you were to take your exact same plan, get rid of the garage, copy that apartment down to the bottom floor, and resubmit with the exact same massing, the exact same everything, but it's just no garage. Does that meet the criteria? Does that go through? Does that meet the zoning? That would be an interesting question.
Garage out of it, yeah.
well, at that
Yeah.
point, it'd be an accessory structure maybe still. I don't know. That'd be an interesting discussion. And then is that square footage of that accessory structure still too big? Even though it's not, I agree. I think it's, it's kind of a,
Because, I think if you can
Weird,
demonstrate that
yeah.
that meets all guidelines and all zoning,
Initially I would have just done that, but I just figured there wasn't going to be space, or you guys wouldn't allow another building in the back.
Convenience of the
Convenience,
garage.
so we did a garage instead of that. That's just because when I drove around the neighborhood and other HP areas, I kind of mimicked what was already there, detached building. So, for me, it was, if I would have known, I would have just done it from the beginning, but it was more so trying to get approved. I thought the garage and an apartment on the top would have done it.
and to be clear, I'm not saying that would be within, I'm saying that would be the study, the code study that I would need to do, or if you all did to propose that. That to me becomes a compelling case that
Sure.
massing, density, all that's in, you're just substituting that.
Angela, do our guidelines differentiate what we can approve for accessory structures within R1 versus R4?
They do not.
Okay.
The guidelines are based on historic preservation
Okay.
initially, and then we have to refer back to the bulk standards for those other things.
Okay.
So in my
So-
mind, I think that could serve as a unique circumstance, that it is zoned R4, which it was obviously meant to have more density than a single-family unit on it.
Well, after hearing all of this feedback, do you have a preference about moving forward? You said that you didn't know some of this might even be allowable, so maybe we should start there to see what you think about your property now that you've heard us all discuss it.
And we can approve everything, it sounds like, except the garage and continue that if we want to do additional proposals, research, code studies.
Approve the duplex so it can move forward, so that
And
doesn't stop the whole thing.
Right. I mean, yeah, so is that permissible, and can we work on the
Yeah, but we
garage
can
aspect?
speak
and
Yes.
Speak with Angel and then figure that out? Okay.
Do you have a preference as to, could you be ready by this coming Tuesday to submit a new plan? That would put you on the June 1st docket.
I am out of town on
Okay.
Tuesday, but,
We'll see.
yeah.
It's going to be tough.
So we'll have to make the motion with a specific meeting date. So if you would prefer it pushed out to July, we can motion for that.
Is this the first continuance, or is this the first?
It's the first continuance,
Okay,
yes.
so theoretically you have 3, so if you wanted to aim for Tuesday and for some reason something came up, you didn't make it, you have 1 extra continuance, but then that would be your last hearing on that.
So, and just to advise or give you the information, so if everything's approved except the garage, you can start, you'll get a CA, certificate of appropriateness, for that portion of the work.
Sure.
Then you come back, and Angela, please correct me if any of this is inaccurate. You'll come back for the continuous portion of the garage. If that gets approved, you'll have a second CA.
Yes.
So they will not be concurrent with each other.
Correct.
You're
So-
allowed to start work on the first portion, and the other will lag behind, but you'll have 2 separate certificate of appropriatenesses that you'll have to close out at the end of the project as well.
So as it stands, we have a number of items that we need to address as conditions for.
I'm sorry.
We have a number of items that we'll address as conditions for your primary structure, and those are things that we're going to have to work on over the next few days. Thus, if you need sufficient time to survey the neighborhood, take a look at other garages, that sort of thing, you may want to continue that to July so that we have adequate time to get your certificate of appropriateness for your primary dwelling ready to go. For your garage only.
For the garage, correct. Yeah. Okay, yeah, let's do that.
Angela, what is the July meeting date? Do you know?
I believe
6th?
it's the 6th.
Okay. Do we have any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? Okay, do we have a motion?
Okay, so just to be clear with the commission, we are prepared to approve items 1, 3, and 4 with the agreed upon conditions. Okay. So the first motion is to approve items 1, 3, and 4 of HPCA 22-00049 with the specific findings and agreed upon conditions referenced in the staff report.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Jordan. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Remy. All in favor, please vote verbally.
Commissioner Fudge,
Yay?
Commissioner Ryman Phillip,
Aye.
Commissioner Corbin, Commissioner Farzana, Commissioner Jordan,
Yay.
Commissioner Meacham, Commissioner Milner, Commissioner Poore,
Aye.
Commissioner Ramey.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Now we need to do the continuance.
Okay, so I motion to continue item 2 of HPCA 22-00049 with the specific findings in the staff report to the July 6th meeting.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Moved by Commissioner Jordan, seconded by Commissioner Poore. All in favor, please vote verbally.
Commissioner Fudge,
Yay?
Commissioner Ryman Phillip,
Aye.
Commissioner Corbin, Commissioner Farzana, Commissioner Jordan,
Yay.
Commissioner Meacham, Commissioner Milner, Commissioner Poore,
Aye.
Commissioner Ramey.
Aye.
Okay, the continuance is also passed unanimously.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, we will move on to item number 5, HPCA 22-00051 at 930 Northwest 22nd Street. Is the applicant present? Hi there. Name and address, please.
Fallon Brooks, 733 Northwest 22nd Street,
Okay. Talk-
representing the applicant.
Talk to us about this particular project.
Okay, so this particular project, this house sits on the corner of 22nd and Ollie. The homeowner wants to build a 2-story garage with a studio space above for piano lessons. There's not currently a garage on the site. There were a few things in the staff report. The existing driveway apron is there, it's just overgrown. So it's actually, we're not widening it, we're basically just reclaiming it, cleaning it up. It's actually right there. It looks like it's all grass, but there's actually a curb back, I don't know, a few feet beyond this alley.
Okay. Looks-
Sorry, I could only see it beyond the fence. I couldn't find it.
Okay.
I didn't get a good shot for it.
Looks like staff has recommended a continuance on this particular project, being that it is a little too large and also 2 stories. How do you think we ought to address that one?
It shouldn't be, the square footage should be exactly 450.
Okay.
The height is, there are 2 other garages on the block. They're not abutting, but they're 2-story. And there was a 2-story garage across the street that I famously tore down. So,
Talk about shooting yourself in the foot.
I know, right? So it's, I don't know.
So this one is 3 feet taller than the surrounding ones though, correct?
3 feet
I
tall.
feel like I read that somewhere in here that this one is proposed at 24 feet. And,
And, you know, on the height, we can drop it to an 8-foot plate on the first and second floor if that helps. That gains us 2 feet. And I usually do an 18-inch joist between, so we could drop that as well to accommodate. So, you know, we can lose 2.5 feet if we need to.
Well, before we get into the height, because the height's contingent on the number of stories, it sounds like it doesn't fit the guidelines for a 2-story garage.
That's where I struggle with it. I mean,
Okay.
the guidelines are pretty straightforward. I don't know that I could vote to approve.
I just do what my clients ask.
I understand. I'd appreciate that.
I can tell them till I'm blue in the face. So would a 1.5 story be, like if we were to continue this and come back, is that within?
The guidelines have a specific bullet that do talk about 1.5-story garages. And I'm going to paraphrase that where there is no photographic documentation of the previously existing garage and a 2-story garage is prohibited, then a 1.5-story garage may be an option.
Okay, I think I
And
wrote
that's
that in
something
here.
that the commission would have to make a determination
Okay.
on. It also further says that on blocks where 1-story garages only exist, that all garages must be 1-story.
Okay,
I did not survey this entire block. I'm sorry.
that's fine, I can do that.
I was pushed for time.
But it sounds like a continuance may be appropriate.
I
Okay.
think so.
Do we have any citizens that wish to be heard or anybody from the neighborhood that wants to visit about this particular project? Okay. Do we have a motion?
Okay, I
Do you-
will,
Do you prefer
there
a
a date you prefer?
particular continuance date?
I mean, May's fine, or June. God, it's late in the year, okay.
So
June's
May
fine.
10th would be when you have to have the submissions.
Oh, then no, probably July.
so July
Yeah.
6th.
Thank you.
You.
Okay, I will motion HPCA 22-00051 to continue item 1 with the specific findings in the staff report to the July 6th meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Jordan, second by Commissioner Remy. All in favor, please vote verbally.
Commissioner Fudge,
Yay.
Commissioner Ryman Phillip,
Aye.
Commissioner Corbin, Commissioner Farzana, Commissioner Jordan,
Yay.
Commissioner Meacham, Commissioner Milner, Commissioner Poore,
Aye.
Commissioner Ramey.
Aye.
Okay, that continuance is passed unanimously.
All right.
I'm assuming
Next.
you're sticking around for the next one?
Yep.
That'll be a fun one. Can we just say the same stuff applies to that one too? All right, so let's do it officially.
There are a couple of things about this one that are a little bit different. There is next door, there's a 2-story.
Fallon, can you give me just 1 second to start this one again?
Sorry,
I'm
yes.
sorry. We are going to move on to item number 6, HPCA 22-00052 at 930 Northwest 21st Street. Looks like we are demolishing a carport and constructing a 2-story garage.
Fallon Brooks, 733 Northwest 22nd. So this one, the abutting property to the east is a multifamily, 2 stories with an attached garage. So I'm going to use that as my justification. And then same thing on the other side over there. Well, there's a garage in the rear of the one next to that as well. That's 2-story.
This is the apartment complex
Yes.
here at the back
Mhm.
and bumps down to another apartment complex. Then
Yes.
this is a 1-story garage with a very high
But
steep
it's
roof.
attached.
I'm sorry?
But it's attached. So the
It
whole
is
thing is 2-story. That's my argument.
Okay.
I guess I'll go through these really quickly. Same thing with the height, the 28 feet. It's actually 27, but we could still knock a couple of feet out of that if we need to. This says the lighting pattern at the proposed garage may not be consistent with historic lighting patterns with 5 fixtures. There's only 2. I don't know if that matters, but
I saw 5. We can work on it though.
and that existing garage is not really, there's no sidewalls. It's literally fence panels. Angela and I disagree on whether or not it's a garage or a carport, but
This is a fence panel?
no, that's like a little storage room on the back. Like it's,
And so on the back side, when I climbed the fence here, that had it as well. So
No.
we'll just have to agree to
it's like
disagree.
a storage shed with a carport attached to it.
I'm sorry, you didn't give me any pictures of the inside, so that was
Okay.
the best I could do.
Looks like a carport or a garage that's maybe been turned into a
Yeah.
carport.
Yeah, and then you can also see where originally, so this house is not original to this site. It was moved here in 1979. And so the existing, you can see the footings for the previous garage are actually still sitting out next to the next to the sidewalk. So the historic justification of what was in the Sanborn maps I feel like doesn't apply because the house isn't original to the site. So that's why I kind of felt like it was a special case and it was worth bringing before you guys.
I appreciate the effort. I think I would still stick with the fact that it's a 2-story garage and at this location it is not appropriate.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know if-
definitely agree that it's a special case.
Yeah.
That certainly, there aren't many homes that were moved into the neighborhood that were historic that were moved there.
And it's the
Except
oldest,
for
70s,
both of
but-
yours,
except for what?
both of yours.
The other one was moved there as well? Didn't know. This, I'm told, is the oldest house in Mesta, even though it wasn't original to Mesta Park, so.
I'm sorry, Sue.
Oh, no, I think you're right about the 2-story garage and specifically the height of this one. There's just nothing in the guidelines that would allow us, even though it certainly is, a special circumstance, there's really nothing that would differentiate this one from your last case.
Any other comments, questions, anything from commissioners? Okay, do we have any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? Do you want a continuance? What would you like on this one?
Continuance is fine.
Do you have a particular date in mind?
July.
July. Okay. Do we have a motion for continuance?
I'll make a motion for HPCA 22-00052 to be continued to the July 6th meeting.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Poore, second by Commissioner Jordan. All in favor, please vote verbally.
Sounds good. All right.
Commissioner Fudge,
Yay.
Commissioner Ryman Phillip,
Aye.
Commissioner Corbin, Commissioner Farzana, Commissioner Jordan,
Aye.
Commissioner Meacham, Commissioner Milner, Commissioner Poore,
Aye.
Commissioner Ramey.
Aye.
Okay, that continuance was passed unanimously. Thanks, Fallon.
Thank you.
We will move on to item number 7, HPCA 22-00054 at 301 Northwest 19th Street. Is the applicant present? Perfect. Talk to us about this particular project. Looks fairly straightforward.
First, Michael Mims, 301 Northwest 19th. Nice to be with you all this afternoon. Remodeling the home and looking at the current state of some of the windows and some of the changes we'd like to make given the renovations inside, primarily applying for things on the back of the house that are not really visible from the street. So some modifications to some existing windows, a relocation of a window, and also on the west side of the home, some modifications to some of the current windows, which there have been extensive modifications already to the west side of the home that I can point out in the pictures.
Okay. Looks like staff has recommended approval on everything with the exception of the second-story window on the west side of the dwelling, indicating that that window is forward of the rear 30% of the dwelling and appears to be visible from the public right-of-way. Are you guys comfortable altering
Yes.
that particular window to make this work?
Yeah, so those two windows we're applying for changes. What we've proposed is keeping the existing width of the windows and just raising up the original sills. That side of the house in particular, you've got 3 windows below on the landing that have been modified. Casements have been added with a modern pattern of stained glass. A window towards the back of the property has been covered up, the stucco's been covered, and then a picture window has been put in a spot where there used to be a double hung window. What you see there, the chimney has also been added to the home. That was not original to the home, and you can see where the boards up above do not cover, and you can see an actual window that was covered up there where that chimney was applied on the side of the house. You can see the old sill there. And the reason we are proposing the modifications to those 2 upper windows on the west side of the home is that's original bathroom and original closet. We are keeping them to be original a bathroom and a closet. However, the neighbor's windows view directly into those windows, and the one closest to the street is in pretty bad condition given the humidity and the water that it's been exposed to. So we're proposing raising those, keeping the original sills, original width, so that we can preserve the window, not have as much humidity and water damage, and also have a little bit more privacy and not kind of be on full display for the neighbors. So that's the reason for the application. Obviously, I wouldn't want to modify one without modifying the other because we're trying to make sure they look consistent. There are lots of homes that I believe are original in the neighborhood that have higher, smaller windows like we are applying for. So we'd be open to keeping any type of window there. I propose just square casement windows that would look like the existing sash, or we could do a smaller double hung window, though they would be pretty small in the opening we're trying to do. So basically, we're proposing essentially raising that window up, raising that sill up halfway, and then restuccoing it to look like the original exterior.
Okay. Any questions from commissioners on this particular item? I mean, I guess I'm pretty comfortable with all of the other modifications. It's this one that I am a little uncomfortable with. guidelines really don't support altering those windows in that particular way. So it's really hard for us to approve something that goes
Sure.
against the guidelines,
I
that
understand.
specifically.
Unfortunately, our alternative would be to cover those windows up from the inside, which we really don't want to do. We'd lose the light, any view, and functionality, but understand that those are the windows that were originally there, and we may not be able to modify them.
Sure.
Now, we do have the ability to allow you to apply an interior film to those windows.
An interior
Is that an
film?
option?
Would that be a waterproof film for the sill and frame?
It would be to block the view through the glass.
Oh,
To some
yeah,
extent.
that would be good to at least block off the lower windows. The one you're seeing on the right side is the one that I worry about water damage going forward, as it would be pretty low to the shower. So basically, it's a shower there with the window coming down to about the half hip. thigh.
And this
Not
is a new bathroom, correct?
It's an existing bathroom that we're remodeling.
Okay, so it was not historically the shower location or the bath location?
I can't speak to where the original shower was. I can tell you that's where the shower is now when we're remodeling it.
I'm struggling to find a unique circumstance that exists for
Yeah,
us to
so
be able to approve.
we've had a lot of cases come through where we kind of say like, well, that's a self-inflicted problem. I mean, you know, it was not the original bathroom location. Obviously, the way we like to use our homes has changed significantly. But again, going back to what we are allowed to approve or act upon, I don't know that there is anything here that would really encourage us to approve it with a unique circumstance. I mean, again, we're just talking about that one window on the second story west side, not the others.
Sure. I just did want to make sure you're clear. That is, the existing shower pan is right underneath that window. We had to remodel it after the freeze of 2021, I guess, the big February freeze. It kind of damaged the entire west side of the home. So that's where all the plumbing is, right there. Not much we can do about it, but we'll be able to make it work if there's no way to get that approved.
Any questions, concerns, any feedback for the applicant? Do we have any citizens that wish to be heard on this project? Anybody from the neighborhood that wishes to speak? Mr. Ice?
You should have received our comments, written comments. Yeah, basically, we don't see any basis for this window to be changed. I have an identical situation in my house, in my shower, and I dry it after I take a shower every day.
It's also why all the people are standing outside Randy's house frequently. Sorry, I couldn't help myself on that one. I mean, I can't find a reason to support modification of that particular window. I hate the fact that it would just be a faux window and covered up, but I don't know that there's any way around it for us.
So there's no possibility of, I mean, obviously if it was historically a bathroom, there is a way to configure the bathroom in which there is not a really short, awkward window in the middle of your shower. Is that a possibility at all?
Sure, I mean, we could reroute the plumbing and change the plan. It was just, that was where all the plumbing comes up
Is this
through.
where the
Makes the most
original
sense.
plumbing was, or has the plumbing been
I don't know
altered?
if it's the original plumbing, but that's where it was plumbed.
Well, I think it kind of sounds like we're all on the same page up here.
Yeah. So it sounds like an approval on everything else but that particular window is kind of where I go to.
And is that a pair of windows or a single window?
That's,
The pair.
it's a single window. There are two different windows. One is in a closet and one is in a bathroom. So that's one double hung window, and on the left is another double hung window.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry,
No.
Angela, were you saying that this item 1 is to include 2 separate windows?
I was under the impression that the 2 windows were under consideration in the upper story and a single window on the first floor.
Okay.
But I could easily have
It
misunderstood
just,
that. I
it just
didn't
says
work
second
this
story,
one.
so I just wanted to
Okay.
be completely clear
Thank
what we
you.
were working with.
Yes,
Well,
we were trying to, really primarily concerned about the window there, the pointer is on, but didn't want to change one without changing the other.
got it, makes sense. Well, if we're ready, if nobody else wants to be heard, are we ready?
Are we,
Sounds like an approval and a denial,
or
or approval and a continuance?
do they need a continuance, or can they come with staff approval for a, well, are they doing anything with that window then?
We won't be doing anything with that window if
So
it's
we
not
can
approved.
approve items 1 and 2, but continue, or
Yeah, if you've got other
and
recommendations.
deny that one?
Yeah,
Okay.
2 through 6.
Okay.
we have a
Anyone
motion?
from the public?
What's that? Oh, we
Anybody
asked.
else?
I think we had, anybody else from the public wish to speak on this? Okay, let's get a motion.
Okay, I would motion to approve items 3, 4, 5, and 6 of HPCA 22-00055 with the specific findings and unique circumstances referenced in the staff report.
Does item 2 get approved as well?
I believe so.
Oh, sorry, sorry.
Yes, 2 through 6.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay, can you repeat that motion again? I'm sorry.
Yes, I motion to approve items 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 of HPCA 22-00055 with the specific findings and unique circumstances referenced in the staff report.
Perfect. Do we have a second?
I'll make a motion, or a second. There we go.
Moved by Commissioner Jordan, second by Commissioner Poore. All in favor, please vote verbally.
Commissioner Fudge,
Yay.
Commissioner Ryman Phillip,
Aye.
Commissioner Corbin, Commissioner Farzana, Commissioner Jordan,
Yay.
Commissioner Meacham, Commissioner Milner, Commissioner Poore,
Aye.
Commissioner Ramey.
Okay, that motion was passed unanimously. Do we have a motion for item number 1?
Sure. I'll motion to deny item 1 of HPCA 22-00055 with the specific findings referenced in the staff report.
Does that need to be with or without prejudice, or does it matter?
With prejudice.
With prejudice. Okay.
Correct?
Second that motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Moved by Commissioner Jordan, second by Commissioner Poore. All in favor, please vote verbally.
Commissioner Fudge,
Yay.
Commissioner Ryman Phillip,
Aye.
Commissioner Corbin, Commissioner Farzana, Commissioner Jordan,
Yay.
Commissioner Meacham, Commissioner Milner, Commissioner Poore,
Aye.
Commissioner Ramey.
Aye.
Okay, that item was denied unanimously. Thank you guys for working with us on the project.
Thank you.
Yep.
No onlookers without paying for admission.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we will move on to item number 7, which is other business. I believe we have a presentation, informational only, on a proposed redevelopment. Is the presenter here? We are. Awesome. If you guys don't mind, come up and state your name and address, and we'll start the presentation.
Commissioner Fudge and commission members, I'm Richard Labarre. I am the managing member of the developer entity, but Richard McCown is actually the person in charge that I look to, and he and Ryan Eshelman, our architect, will be the ones that will be addressing you today. This is on a project that we are working on, which would be a single-tenant build-to-suit child care center for St. Luke's Methodist Church, which is just in the next block over. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the fellows that know a lot more than I do.
Perfect. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Ryan Eshelman, GSB, 3555 Northwest 58th Street. In the submission, we provided 2 site plan options. As Richard mentioned, the intent of the site is to redevelop it with 2 independent buildings separated by a parcel with an existing business that will remain in place, and those 2 buildings will house a child care facility. In order to achieve the necessary square footage required to accommodate that child care facility and to accommodate the playgrounds and play areas necessary there are two scenarios that we were contemplating. One is listed as site plan option 1 is to respect the setback line established by the sole remaining original structure on that block. And in doing so, that pushes the buildings back on the block, obviously. You can see them back to the property line. There's some additional alley right-of-way. There is no alley in place behind the buildings, and that creates the play yard in front of the buildings. In order to accommodate the play structures in the play area, we're proposing to provide an ornamental fence in front of the buildings that would enclose that play area as is indicated. This is a unique block in that the right-of-way is dramatically larger than normal. So instead of being at the back edge of the sidewalk, you can see the red line there. It's actually 15 feet north of the sidewalk. So we're proposing to utilize some of that right-of-way to create those play areas. You can see the general configuration of the entry points and some parallel or drop-off areas on the street. There's no parking lot associated with this project. The parking will be off-site a little bit, very little on-street, and a little bit proposed in the alley. Option number 2 is to put those play areas and playgrounds behind the buildings. In order to do that, the buildings have to move forward. So recognizing that the original structure needs to be respected, this proposes a stair-stepped configuration to allow more of the building to be closer to the street, but to work their way back into a adjacency to that existing structure. So, and then again, a little bit of parking behind the building and some drop-off or parallel parking in front of the buildings. So those are the two scenarios. Obviously, if you're familiar with St. Luke's existing child care facility, they have a play area out by the street that has a fenced enclosure, a block to the west, and there are some other examples of that kind of decorative fence, ornamental fence with brick columns potentially just off the sidewalk. So happy to answer any questions about that, and Richard may have some additional comments regarding the proposed development and these accommodations.
Do you all have a preference on which plan you would prefer, just out of curiosity?
Well, I think, I think it would be nice to maintain a consistent setback line and have those play areas actually can activate the street. There's going to be residential across, and so rather than empty yard, particularly as I mentioned, since St. Luke's has a similar scenario now, that would be a nice scenario. Just recognizing that that puts a lot of that activity on the street. But obviously we submitted both of these because we think both of them are workable and wanted you guys to be able to think through kind of your priorities and the priorities for the district.
Does it change these two options? Would your potential exterior elevations change tremendously based on either of these?
No, I mean obviously the third dimension would change with the stair stepping, but the architectural character would be generally consistent. And
is the existing commercial office building going to be part of this complex, or is that a totally separate property that someone else owns and operates?
Different landowner, totally independent use. It's a professional office, an original residence that was converted to a business use many years ago. So it will not be a part of this development.
Okay, and sorry, just one more question from me, and this is just out of curiosity. I think when we approved the demolition of the things that were here, I think in November, I believe in their proposal they included mock-ups of what they thought the exterior elevations might look like, and those were proposed as faux residential buildings. Is that still the game plan? I mean, these look huge, so I just was curious.
No further development of the architecture has taken place pending these resolution of the site plan issues. Obviously, the buildings are large footprints, so the intent is to break those facades down with rhythm and scale appropriate to the neighborhood. So we've talked about utilizing some second floor space for offices and the like that wouldn't be utilized by the children. But obviously, we need to represent a rhythm to this street that would be somewhat representative of the original development, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
You may not have developed this very far, but what kind of fencing are you proposing? Because I mean, there's a security concern, of course, with the kids and the street. But as you mentioned, I think, St. Luke's the way it is now, and you have that kind of active character with the kids playing in the front, and, there's a lot of activity on the sidewalks. So, yeah, I guess what kind of fence are you imagining?
We're envisioning an ornamental metal fence between 4 and 6 feet in height, and obviously it needs to be high enough that someone couldn't reach over and grab a child, but we don't want it to feel like, uncomfortably tall. And again, if brick columns to break up that ornamental fence were favorable or advantageous, we would do that. If to keep the fence as transparent as possible, if the consensus was that just ornamental metal was preferred, that would be the approach.
I mean, personally, I don't think I have an issue with like intermittent columns or anything. I think the big thing, for me would be keep the height to a, reasonable level, so it doesn't feel too separate, or it doesn't separate the play area from the public realm too much, and keep it as transparent as possible, which it sounds like that's kind of what the game plan is anyway, with the metal fence, with.
Sure.
So the goal would essentially be to mimic what's already existing at the St. Luke's Child Care Facility playground across the street.
I don't remember their specific fence design, so I can't speak to the.
It's transparent metal,
right.
black,
Yes.
Playground on the front.
We've noted basically like a 3-foot setback, so we could have, a little bit of planting, low shrubs with the ornamental metal behind, so that people are separated by a few feet from the fence and don't, lean on it. But again, high enough to be secure for the kids, but as low as possible to maintain, visibility and appropriateness for the neighborhood.
Okay.
Is there are you modeling buildable area, or are these, because the building B is much smaller in site plan 2 with the parking?
Yeah, there's, between the two options, there's between 23 and 26,000 square feet of footprint. We don't know exactly the square footage because the buildings haven't been designed, but that's just kind of in the range that's been discussed with St. Luke's. So and again, this doesn't have any articulation, ins and outs. The face of the building is not going to be a dead straight line, so there will be some modifications to that as these are designed to become real buildings.
Yeah, I can appreciate the constraints that you're working with and that you're highlighting and pointing out. I agree. I think both are workable. I think what just my initial reaction, for what it's worth, is the constraint of that existing home office building in the middle. If this were one building on the full block, I think it's appropriate in that part of the city. I think that part of where you guys are, there's a lot of mix. It gives you a lot of flexibility. So I think that all of these conceptually work. It's just figuring out a way to just not make that middle building feel so weird.
Well, and in the spirit of making lemonade, because we have a split lot, it does break the scale down. So as somebody mentioned, that's a big footprint. So having this into two components does take what would appear to be a much larger building and again break it down in scale. So I agree. Functionally it would solve a lot of problems, but we think we can still contribute to the neighborhood and be a good neighbor.
Sure, and I think, like I said, both of these are just site plans. So
Sure.
Once these take three-dimensional form, that's really where you're going to be able to tell. It's just, I think this could go either way. You could definitely see where it feels like this building in the middle is in like an alley. Like it feels like it's in an alley. But if it's masked up and articulated well and handled and designed, I think it's both can be very successful, and you're aware of all that. I'm just raising it could definitely go down a strange road quickly.
Well, and when you look at this, when you look at this site plan, this all makes perfect sense. If a storm came through and blew that structure down in the center, then people would say, well, why'd they design this like, it's all centered around that existing structure. It's kind of the star of the show on that block because it's the only thing remaining. So it certainly is the driver for the configuration.
And maybe it's just if I could, we're not on the board here to design anything, but as a third option or suggestion, is there a version that gives some breathing room between that existing building and one of the buildings? So like a side yard where you kind of maybe like taking childcare building B and rotating it 90 degrees, for an example. Now, you may study that and it may be a horrible solution, but just maybe something that kind of...
Yeah, we've tried to be sensitive that with the play area and a business neighbor that that's a consideration we'll be careful about. So if we do run, the play area along the entire length, we would certainly want that party to be on board with that approach because it would impact their business as well. Sure.
Richard McCowan, 30 Northeast 2nd Street, Oklahoma City, SSLM Development. This idea of staggering the setbacks really comes from a relationship to the building across the street and future buildings that will be across the street. We did a rezoning on the south side of 14th Street, bringing that entire city block into DTD1. And so eventually, there's going to be a big 4-story multifamily building, residential, that'll be built all the way up to the property line. And the thing that I love seeing, and a lot of you guys know I'm a suburban developer also, and we don't do collector streets, right? Collector streets, every collector street in Norman, Oklahoma has had a car clocked doing 70 miles an hour on it. And the way you get people to slow down is to squeeze the street, plant trees in the tree lawn between the curb and the sidewalk, and you pull the buildings closer to the street and people drive slower. It's a miracle. And so as we've gotten rid of collector streets, people drive slower through our suburban neighborhoods. And so this idea of staggering the setback is really to try and create that dynamic relationship with the historic building on the corner of 14th and Robinson and the future relationship with the south side of the street. So that way you kind of come in and you've got like this, hug by these new structures, and then they sort of open out, and then, the building that's there is nice. It's, and hopefully it won't get blown away by a tornado. And, it'll always be there. It's the last one on the street. But it also creates a couple of other really neat opportunities, and that is to break up 4 different play spaces. So we're dealing with little bitty kids all the way up to a little bit bigger kids, and so you turn them loose in a nice day, and you've got 4 different play groups going with this configuration. But it's a lot to ask, right? I mean, we could turn Ryan loose and he designs this all up and takes it all into context, and maybe start over here at the west end, and the building has a little bit more of a commercial feel, mimicking its sister across the street, and then the next step has more of a residential structure, and then as we get to being right next to the historic structure, maybe we do a wraparound porch that sort of creates that sort of side yard experience, or creates that relationship of massing and scale, and then we stagger back out the other way toward the CrossFit gym that's to our east. I don't know. I mean, it's a lot. There's a lot of things can happen here, and it's a lot of design time to ask for something that's a significant change, to stagger buildings forward. So that's why we're here today, for informational purposes, is to try and get some adult supervision, because Lord knows I need it. All real estate developers do. And if y'all had, at this point where you're not really voting at all. You're more of just like giving us some guidance and some direction on what you'd like to see us come back with. I mean, we want to get this right, and we think it's going to be a great addition to the neighborhood.
Well, I appreciate, you guys presenting, because it's always nice to take a staggered approach and not come with, the fully designed whatever, and then it's like, oh, this isn't, And I really appreciate your comments on bring the building forward. I know, in an urban setting that is, kind of best practice is to have that kind of street edge, kind of create that that interplay between the street and the building and the sidewalk, and having the building right up on the property line. We've done that. I worked on a multifamily project where it was in a residential area that was really, it was in transition, I would say, towards a more dense neighborhood. And we put an apartment complex on the property line with buildings surrounding it that were set back the typical 20, 25 feet. So, there's a precedent for taking it to the property line. And I totally agree. I think that'll make that corner feel better. The only, my big concern in plan, and same as Commissioner Remy was noting, it's kind of tough to discern without elevations and a three-dimensional model of what's going to happen there. But in plan, it's like you almost, where you have the buildings in line with the other building, kind of minimizes the weirdness maybe of that center building versus this kind of like almost highlights it. And I wonder if there's a middle ground where it's like, instead of staggering it all the way, where, and again, I'm not trying to design it for you, but that just creates this huge kind of, it's like directing all your attention on this kind of unique element. So maybe there's a middle ground where you can, maybe there is some stepping, which might be nice anyway to kind of break up the mass of that building, on that block. And if you took the whole building to the street, you'd have this one house setback in between two massive, so it's a design challenge for sure, a unique design challenge.
And I think to give feedback, and part of that feedback is just sharing potential concerns or downfalls, so that those can be just. But I don't think, personally, I don't have any issue with density. I think you're in again, part of the city that you have the church, you got more dense residential units, you've got commercial that's a block away. I think you have the flexibility on this specific site, in my opinion, to have density. So I think that you can, again, I don't want to speak for the commission, but move forward with that design approach. I think your setback approach, whether you come to the street, I think that's appropriate. Again, we're in this hybrid site. It's a transitional site. So if you take an approach that you want to make it more urban, I think that's appropriate. If you want to set it back to be more residential feeling, I think that's appropriate. So I think you have the flexibility. It's just going to be the execution of the design. But I guess my concern, and I think we're all saying it, is I don't want this to be the house that's in the Pixar movie Up.
Yeah, what a great example.
You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that it would be, and I'm not saying you would approach that. You guys do great work. That's not, but that's what I see when I see the site.
Not trying to do.
Yeah, I will say, I think I am personally a fan of the more consistent setback across. I think it feels a little shrine-like looking at it from this bird's eye view of just imagining it getting, it almost, on this screen, now not in reality, but reads a little like a courtyard tucked in there with it staggered, in my opinion. I also, I totally hear what you're saying about the traffic patterns and gaining speed and plantings and whatever, but that's not the easiest spot in the world to gain speed in general. There are, a lot of one-ways and medians and stop signs. This is not a place where people, that's a natural concern any more so than it is any block in Mesta or Heritage. But just my 2 cents, I think it's going to be a tricky plan, and y'all will no doubt make it work, but I personally appreciate the consistent setback and more of the green space out front.
Richard, Ryan, can you just walk me through the parking? Because one has considerable more parking shown, 16 on one side, and then the other are just 4 or 5 spaces off the alley. And then one is showing a drop-off zone specifically, and then the others look like parallel parking. So how
Again, these are to illustrate concepts that we
Right.
want to explore. So parallel parking on the street or just drop-off lanes and no parking on, that's shown on both options. Those are applicable to any approach we took. And then the pocket parking in the back is an option, and it would be staff parking, and that's on the other, that area. So if we were going to provide some staff parking that was just easily accessed off the alley, the other scenario was just to cut in off the alley with some angled parking. So again, we're not, obviously some of those work better than others with different building configurations, but we're just illustrating the ways that we could get a few spaces close to the building, but we're, thankfully we don't have a big parking load, and a parking lot is not part of what we need to.
would the parallel parking be, like, could somebody park there for 2 hours? Or would you intend for it to be like 30-minute quick?
The parallel parking on the street,
Yeah, on the front off of 14.
that would be intended to facilitate drop-off and pickup.
Okay, so it would be drop-off.
Yeah, I
is
mean, if it had to have a 20-minute time limit on it, it wouldn't impede anything.
The other thing that's really wonderful about this concept from a parking standpoint is St. Luke's has a massive parking lot across the street. So we're able to do that wonderful double duty of a parking lot, especially, for, an after hours type program or something, that might take place. There's not lots of that kind of thing that happens at these childcare facilities, but nonetheless, that parking lot is really busy at noon, and then it's not. It's just sitting there, it's busy when there's church. So seeing that parking having multiple services or serving multiple purposes is really a nice bonus with this.
I think one thing that would be helpful, Richard, you're mentioning the proposed projects kind of in the surrounding area, and I don't want to add a bunch of design time. Maybe Ryan wants me to add a bunch of design time, I'm not sure, but something that kind of gives us context and massing, just to kind of understand, how this building fits in with existing context and future context, I think would be whenever you get to that point, would be immensely helpful.
Sure thing.
Yeah, final quick thoughts. I guess, is some of that north playground and the staff parking in option 2 in the alley?
They're in the alley right of way. There's not an alley
okay.
in place.
I mean, I'm sure you guys are checking that out, but I was going to make sure that doesn't, it's some kind of issue as far as.
Certainly.
Yeah. And then one final thought, on option 2, I like the fact that the building comes up to the property line and kind of creates an urban edge. Maybe the fact that it's mirrored really makes that house kind of gives it that kind of hierarchy. So maybe it doesn't have to be symmetrical necessarily, or Anyway, that's my final thoughts. And,
My thought on the stagger is it almost draws your eye directly to the house, which I think is really kind of a nice nod to the historical nature and the historic district. So I personally like the staggered, and I really like the idea of having it be kind of, more, I guess, commercial and then residential. But just these guys have a better eye for that than I do. I can assure you. But my opinion.
well, it's a unique scenario for sure.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You have your work cut out for you.
Okay.
It's going to be great.
But no objection to the ornamental fence in the front that you can think of.
No, I think if you have the play area in the front, I think some transparency is nice. And,
Okay, thank
you. Do you all have any questions for us, or I want you to walk away feeling somewhat resolved as much as you can be at this conceptual level.
Well, I didn't hear anything that you saw that you said, don't you dare bring this back. So, and I think there's some options you described, maybe a consistent setback that's not all the way back and all the way forward, maybe some variation in the setbacks. So I think we've got some options to explore. Splitting the playgrounds up, moving them forward, flexibility on parking. I think the onus is on us to propose something more specific now that you've drawn the lines on the field that we need to play within here.
Regarding the setbacks, I think a really great thing to do would be to go to the neighborhoods, Heritage Hills specifically. I think they're probably going to have some strong opinions about the setback and the street view, and how the potential use of the alley and the alley right-of-way affects any neighbors.
We have met with the Heritage Hills. They have their own planning, zoning, Randy Ives, chairman of that, so we're in contact with them.
There he is.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that, you know, a project of this scale certainly deserves to be heard by the neighborhood and to have their opinions weighed.
Thank you all.
I'm just glad there's not a huge garage on it, you know, that's a good thing. Okay, yeah, Garage Mahal. So we'll move on to item number 8, communications and reports. I think we had 13 administrative approvals. Angela, Rita, do we need to do anything with that? Okay. We talked about withdrawals earlier. Yes, Angela? I'm sorry? No, we're getting down to the Board of Adjustment. We do have one item, looks like a home sharing item on E, which would be, BOA 15022. Looks like we've got applicants present. Please come up and state your name and address for the record, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Buendia. I'm speaking on behalf of Gina Buendia, who's my wife who's here today. She was the applicant. She just had knee surgery, so she can't really stand for too long a period of time. My wife and I purchased this property at the end of last spring. It's a property that in a neighborhood that we love. We it's not our primary home, but we do live here in Oklahoma City. We like the neighborhood. We've done some updates to the landscaping and to the backyard. We use it for personal reasons for our family to enjoy the neighborhood and for friends that are visiting. But we'd also like to get a recommendation for home sharing and short-term rental.
Okay. I think the major issue that we've got is that it has to be your primary residence and you have to live on site.
Okay.
Are you guys living on site?
We do not live on site.
I would struggle with a recommendation for home sharing without that particular piece. That is a specific guideline that we must follow.
There are some exceptions.
Are there?
I don't have my sheet.
There are exceptions, as Rita informs me.
I don't have my sheet.
We don't have the sheet with us.
I don't have the rest of my staff report. For some reason, it is all missing. You have yours.
There's not a lot of.
They're listed in this report, the special exceptions.
Okay.
It looks like there are 7.
Okay,
I'm happy
thank you.
to summarize them if y'all want.
If you don't mind, that would be great.
It needs to be in harmony with the policies in the comprehensive plan. It shall be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the applicable zoning district regulations. It shall not adversely affect the use of neighboring properties. It shall not generate pedestrian and vehicular traffic that is hazardous or in conflict with existing and anticipated traffic. It will provide adequate utility, drainage, parking, loading, access, signs, and other necessary public facilities to serve the proposed use. Those shall meet standards and provisions of city code. The Board of Adjustment shall ensure that the reasonable precautions are taken to protect nearby existing and anticipated development from hazardous and obnoxious conditions, specific conditions regarding location, design, et cetera, safety. Basically, they don't want you to be a nuisance. If necessary, to protect the general public and to protect the use of the neighboring property from potential loss or use and decrease in land value, the Board of Adjustment may require additional site-proof screening and landscaping according to standards contained in Article 11, Landscaping Screenings Regulations. I mean, I think with the letters we've received from the neighborhood, we've already, you know, we're already not meeting 3 or 4 of these exceptions. So if we're, you know, if an exception is what we're looking for, getting a bunch of negative feedback from neighbors doesn't bode well.
Could I respond to
Absolutely.
the letters? So when we first looked at the property and purchased it, we did talk to the neighbors that did send letters in. We actually have a contradictory email to one of the ladies that sent that, that my wife sent in, that actually was excited about the idea of what we wanted to do and asked if her own kids could stay there when they're in town. We have a long driveway with a detached garage setback, so parking would actually accommodate 3 vehicles without any difficulty. We specifically have plans for quiet hours for the property, no more than 6 guests. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. Not trying to create a lot of traffic and parking within the street. And so there is a very long driveway. We've already put together a quiet hour sheet to be respectful to neighbors, and we've gone over that with them. And so we were surprised that they sent that in, that email, and after we had a conversation with them, even they sent that other email that's in the application.
We do have the original letter submitted by neighbors to the commission as well as the email chain. I have a question in this presentation, in the photos. I mean, it appears you already have some HP violations. I mean, some things that that seem very recent that have not come before this board. So, I mean, that is not something we can address today, but I would say it's of concern.
Any other comments or questions from commissioners?
So staff is recommending approval on this.
Well,
And it's really, I guess it's really difficult on this one because it's like, I feel like these exceptions, they're all kind of, there's nothing that's black and white, or, you know, they're all kind of maybe subject to interpretation, it seems like. I don't know if.
So what the Board of
Exactly.
Adjustment wants from you is your opinion on the impact this use of the property will have on a historic neighborhood. So you're not being asked to approve anything, but just to say, this is an historic area, we've heard from the neighbors, and this is what we think. So then they, tomorrow, will review the application, hear from anyone who has anything to say about it, and they will take a motion and vote on whether or not home sharing should be allowed. So everything that you say needs to be specific to your specialty, because they won't have that tomorrow.
Yep. Then I suppose, just personally, I'll just make the comment that regardless of what the, you know, the exceptions and the guidelines, you know, all I really have is the written letters from the neighbors who seem to have, you know, have some concerns about it. So I think really just,
Should we let them speak?
yeah, I think that would
Do
be
we have
nice.
neighbor,
But-
or do we have any citizens that wish to be heard as well? Yes, ma'am. Do you
So those
mind?
would be, you know, my comments would just be to.
My name's Shannon Rundle. I live 431 Northwest 20th, and I inherited Hills, lived there 40 years, longer than most of you were born. But anyway, I was on the commission for 12 years, and I've done HP neighborhood work forever, and Rita knows that. Anyway, I think that when the Airbnb thing came up, HP neighborhoods banded together to talk to the city to try to protect, because we are in the location where everyone wants to have an Airbnb. We're near downtown, and you know, we're very popular. We have parks and sidewalks, and so we anticipated that there would be a lot of people that would want to do Airbnb, and that's why the neighborhoods banded together, hired attorneys, and worked with the city to get the protections for the neighborhoods. And I think that that's why it has to go through you all and then to a special exception. These are not just, you know, go in and get a license kind of things in HP areas. And this particular area in Jefferson Park is residential. It's a lot of, I think, people who've lived there for years. They live a kind of a quiet existence, and to bring Airbnbs in is just intrusive on it. And I think it's against, I guess you've been operating it with no license, is that right?
We've had some family and guests there, but we don't have a listing active, or we're not renting it out.
But anyway, I just think that certainly the 7 HP neighborhoods are worried about Airbnbs, and I think you all need to be real careful on this one because obviously the neighbors don't think it's good in that location. So do you have any questions for me?
Well, no, home sharing is allowed in HP neighborhoods, but there are certain guidelines that are pretty clearly defined. Sorry, one of them being that you have to occupy the house or the property to rent that out. And I feel like that's actually, honestly, a pretty good compromise because it means that you can still home share, but it really benefits the people that are already living there. You know, it's someone who's living on the property, someone that owns the house. It adds wealth back into the neighborhood in that way. And I felt like that was a pretty fair compromise. And looking at the exceptions for this, you know, maybe in a vacuum, I would say, yeah, I don't really have an issue with that. If we had letters of support from the neighbors, you know, then I would say, okay, I don't really have an issue with with this particular case, and we have we have an outline for exceptions to allow for home sharing outside of the very specific guidelines. But the fact that we do have some comments from neighbors that feel that it's a nuisance, I feel like there's not enough other evidence or other compelling reasons to circumvent, the guidelines that are kind of set for home sharing in historic preservation neighborhoods. So I think it was a good compromise. The home ownership rule.
Yeah,
so.
I think it adds a lot of accountability to, for the Airbnb owners and who you're willing to take on as guests. I have a question about in your application, the page that's headed special exception for lodging accommodations, and you've listed A through G. You said you are not advertising it currently?
Correct.
It does state the method of advertising is Airbnb. Is that for your proposal, or is that what you've been doing? Because it says method of advertising.
No, it's just the plan.
Okay.
Just the work that we've done.
So everyone
ahead of
who
time.
stayed there so far has been a family member or friend who's just been a guest of yours?
Correct.
So I am not a big fan of Airbnbs in the neighborhoods. Personally, I think that, that kind of goes hand in hand with why we don't allow a lot of commercial projects in these residential historic neighborhoods, and why, we don't like to see them homes rented out long-term for filming or this, that, and the other. It just pretty dramatically changes the dynamic of the neighborhood in a hurry. And it is kind of a domino effect wherein, you approve one and suddenly there's potential to scoop up 4 or 5 bungalows and have, a big, a block full of Airbnbs. I love Airbnbs. I stay in them all the time. But I think with, we do see nationwide trends of the more typically HP, but not always, neighborhoods where they are trending away from allowing Airbnb because of so many complaints like this. We all probably love to stay up later, be louder, party more when we're on vacation, and I think therein lies the problem with putting them in these dense historical neighborhoods with limited parking. For me, with this much opposition from the neighborhoods and the neighbors, I'm a hard no.
I think that's where I fall as well. I mean, it clearly has affected the neighborhood and neighbors in general. The fact that you're not on site concerns me long-term in terms of it being potentially an Airbnb and all that. I think I'm in the same place as Commissioner Jordan.
So the staff did recommend approval. Is there more context, or is there any color behind?
What was the
why?
staff's exception?
I can speak to the fact that we did not have any comments from the neighbors or the neighborhood prior to initiating that. I believe that we were also under the impression that the house was occupied by the homeowners.
So if you knew, would you have recommended approval with the opposition from the neighbors and knowing that the homeowners do not live on site? Would it have still been recommended for approval?
I believe knowing that the homeowners do not live on site would have had an effect on what Katie had to say about this particular proposal. I'm sorry.
That's all I really need to know. If there's no current and relevant reason, staff would have recommended approval, and there's no real exception and no real positive impact. I don't.
Yeah, and I think I just want to say the home sharing is all somewhat new to me, but I think if the approach of the commission is home sharing is bad and it's never allowed, which is kind of what I'm hearing, I don't think that's the right approach either. If it's allowed by the municipal code, if zoning allows it, I think you're getting into property rights issues. You know, the stated, if there are issues with the neighbors, if it becomes a nuisance, but I'm struggling with this because I don't want to, it sounds like we're throwing out a blanket statement that, or at least some of the comments that I'm hearing
I want to be
is
very
concerning.
specific in, I guess, my comments of what I was saying, and I completely agree with your comments on this. And I'm not against home sharing fundamentally at all. As a matter of fact, I think it can be a great benefit to homeowners. I think it could be a great benefit to, you know, neighbor like Paseo, Uptown 23rd. I think, you know, bringing up people from out of state in. So I do not fundamentally have an issue with home sharing per se. I'm very specifically speaking of the fact that there was a big negotiation with the city and with historic preservation neighborhoods on how do we allow for home sharing in HP neighborhoods and how can that work. And the compromise that was developed is essentially we will allow home sharing in historic preservation neighborhoods so long as it's like, you know, like if someone has a garage apartment, a homeowner lives on site somewhere and they can rent out an extra bedroom, an extra, you know, garage apartment, whatever it is. And so that is kind of the base guideline for historic preservation neighborhoods. Now it seems like there are some exceptions that could be approved to allow for home sharing if you weren't living on site. And the way I'm interpreting this is that I would agree with staff, you know, as recommending approval, except for the fact that we do have neighbors that are concerned about it, and the fact that it, you know, you are not living on the property, which is, you know, directly in, I guess, non-compliance with that agreement the city made kind of with HP, that kind of provision that they developed. So just to be clear, yeah, I want to be clear that I'm not against home sharing per se, and I do respect property rights. But this is one of those unique situations where there was a compromise made that I think is a pretty good, fair compromise. And unfortunately, this just doesn't, you know.
Doesn't quite hit all the guidelines.
I think that we are tasked with protecting these neighborhoods and the integrity of the communities in them, and I really struggle with, you know, nobody being on site who has any investment beyond the monetary investment in this home, operating it as an in-and-out rental. I think there's no real reason to approve it based on the information before us, based on the homeowner not being on site, based on the neighbors' complaints. I don't see any real reason to move this forward.
I think that's what we're all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have an Airbnb across the street from me, and the owner lives on site, and I wrote a letter of recommendation to support the Airbnb. So I'm definitely not against it. They run it well. I love seeing people park and walk through my neighborhood up to the uptown. So I definitely am in support. I just don't think in this situation with you not living on site, it's appropriate.
Agreed.
Can I make one comment that one of the people that sent a letter in is not a homeowner, but they're also a renter as well. And if you look at the entire block, from an exception standpoint on improving or devaluing the neighborhood, our yard, our front of our house, our curb appeal, the house itself actually is the nicest in the neighborhood. So, and we don't do this to, you know, only for monetary reasons. There's a lot of personal reasons we do it, not for people just to come in and out, but we do protect it. It's something that we love. It's not purely for entertainment for people to come in and be loud. It's not, sometimes a misconception of short-term rentals is that it's a party house, which is quite the opposite of what homeowners want to do when they have these properties, is actually to provide some type of a luxury accommodation for people to enjoy the nicest parts of Oklahoma City. So think it's important for me to say that.
Sure. Okay, so we make a recommendation?
Yes, you'll need a stated recommendation that will then be forwarded to Board of Adjustment for tomorrow's hearing.
Okay.
And Ms. Rundell is still standing, I don't know. if she-
Oh, ma'am, would you like to say something?
I didn't want to make it sound like the HP neighborhoods don't want any Airbnbs, and I agree with Cassie. Cassie and I live in the same neighborhood about a block from each other, and the Airbnb across from you, I think, is run really well. And it's an addition, and people do come to visit their children in the neighborhood and stay there, but it's all much more personal than just, anybody. So I think that and owner occupied is really what we went for, and that was what the city gave us.
Sure.
That the houses would be, the owners would be there, so.
Okay. Do we have a recommendation? Would anybody like to voice their recommendation? Klaus, you did it so eloquently.
Yeah, I'll make a recommendation to the Board of Adjustment for, what is it?
15022.
BOA 15022, to deny the applicant's request for a home sharing ordinance, and specifically that although we support Airbnbs and that there is a path to operating the Airbnb or home sharing, sorry, let me replace it with home sharing, that this particular case does not meet those guidelines because the homeowner is not living on site, and that the conditions cannot be met due to the neighborhood
Comments?
sentiment, I guess, yeah. I'm sorry? Sentiment. Neighborhood sentiment.
Do we need to second that or anything, Rita? Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Moved by Commissioner Raymond Phillip, seconded by Commissioner Poore. All in favor of this recommendation, please vote verbally.
And if any of you are available and want to come to Board of Adjustment meeting, it's tomorrow at 1:30, right here.
Rita, is that, I don't know what the standard protocol is for Board of Adjustment meetings. Would it be important that commissioners be there, or is that just, if you're curious?
It's not that kind of situation. You wouldn't be arguing for or against, and your written recommendation would be presented. You could just nod and say, yes, that's what we recommended if you wanted to hear it and see how it went. It's also televised, so if you wanted to watch it that way, you could do that.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay, can we take a vote verbally, please?
It's actually available
Oh.
on PrimeGov. Who was the second?
Commissioner Poore? Or wait, who, yeah, Commissioner
It
Poore was
says
your second.
Commissioner Remy seconded.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Right, so
but I think it was Cassie.
There we go. Moved by Commissioner Poore. Oh, geez, I'll just wait. You. Moved by Commissioner Raymond Phillip, seconded by Commissioner Poore.
All right.
I got it on there, yeah. Should we do a verbal vote, just to round out the meeting with all verbal votes? Oh, there we go. Okay. So that recommendation was denied unanimously by this commission. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Let's see. Rita, do we have anything from, I'm sorry, Angela, anything from Planning Commission? Negative. Rita, anything from Municipal Counselor's Office? No. Let's see. Our next meeting date, the next regularly scheduled meeting for the Historic Preservation Commission is Wednesday, June 1st at 2 p.m. in Municipal Building, City Council Chambers. New applications for this meeting were received April 5th, 2022. New information on projects continued from today's meeting to the upcoming meeting must be submitted to staff by 4 p.m. Tuesday, May 10th. The next regularly scheduled workshop for the Historic Preservation Commission is Wednesday, June 8th from 11:30 to 1:30 at 420 West Main Street, Suite 900. Do we have any items that commissioners want to share or discuss? Nothing there. Any citizens that wish to be heard? Nobody's approaching the podium. The meeting is adjourned with no motion necessary. Thank you.